and ready voter. Thank you all for joining us. We are just under a week to the next election, so this is a very timely and important issue that we're discussing this evening. We are in unprecedented times, so we really appreciate you joining us, and we hope that this will help you to answer the questions of where you should vote, how you should vote, how to cast your ballot, and things of that nature. So tonight, I want to introduce for welcome and greetings, Dr. Aaron Fichtner, the president of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges.
Good evening. Thank you, Sandra. And thanks to our incredible team, both at the Council of County Colleges and at Brookdale Community College for working with us on this important series. As Sandra noted, we have an election less than a week away. And every 4 years, we have the ability to elect a president. Every 2 years, we have an opportunity to weigh in on who should represent us in the US Congress, in the House, and in the Senate. And so this is an important election, and for a lot of reasons. And so we are doing the series because we at the Council of County Colleges and our 18 community colleges across the state believe strongly that it's important that we all are participants in our democracy. One of our core values in community colleges is really community and civic engagement. We want to make sure that everyone in our community is active in building a better community. And what better way to do that than to exercise your right to vote and cast a ballot for the candidate and candidates of your choice to help shape the future of our state and of our country. And so this is a really, really important opportunity to exercise our rights. At a time like this, it's important, I think, to reflect on all of the people throughout our history who have fought, who have died in some cases, who have risked their lives for the right to vote. And we are all standing on their shoulders and are grateful for all the work that they have done to make sure that more people in our country have the right to vote and to participate in our democracy. So as we are acting, casting our ballots, we are doing so in that tradition, but we're doing so with our best attempt to try to build a better state and a better country. And so I thank all of you who've joined us tonight on Zoom and all of you joining us on Facebook Live. I hope everyone is staying safe and well. And on behalf of the Council of County Colleges and the 18 community colleges across the state and our 300,000 students who are touched by a community college every year, I want to welcome you tonight and ask you to exercise your rights and to vote next Tuesday or to vote before via mail. We'll learn all about the ins and outs of voting in a COVID world. But to everyone joining us tonight, please stay safe, please be well, and keep participating in your democracy. Keep working with us to build a more equitable and resilient New Jersey. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. And as Aaron mentioned, we have been working with our community colleges. So at this time, I'm pleased to introduce Rose Adu, who is a student leader at Brookdale Community College. Rose?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rose Adu. I am the president of the Student Life Board at Brookdale Community College, and I'm also an EOS student. I am majoring in the paralegal studies major, and I'm really happy to see everyone here today. I wanted to just base off of my opinion on why voting is so important to me. It's not just about the fact that if you vote, that you're voting for certain aspects like the White House or who's going to sit in the House of Representatives or who's going to be in the Congress. It's more than that. It's even in your counties. Each county also has 2 senators that represents their county. So there's even that you're voting for, and some of the aspects inside of your county, the issues that you probably aren't aware of, like the education system, who's going to get food to the public schools, how are they going to promote the library and get new textbooks or computers that they need, things that you wouldn't have to think of on an everyday basis. But it wasn't always this way, as we know. Voting from the past has changed from how it is now. Back then, it went from just a certain race is able to vote to a certain gender was supposed to vote. And now we are all supposed to vote. So even if you are not aware of the fact that even though you're not like sure about who to vote for, or if you're not sure about your ballot of the elections, still do vote. Vote because you have the right to, because we usually did not have the right. And now we do. So even if you're not able to vote or you already did, not only vote because of what's going to happen and how you're going to help your community and the country, but encourage others to vote as well.
Thank you so much. And I hope that you've been helping your fellow students to learn how to vote. And I think that it's very important that even after today that we help people who may be confused about how to vote, where to vote, and we can share this with them as well. So this webinar series, Are You a Proven Ready Voter? We're going to go over why should you exercise your right to vote, how can you cast your ballot, and where to cast your ballot. So at this time, I just wanted to make a special note of our guest speakers. This evening, we have Danielle Jones, who is the EOF Student Communications and Leadership Development Specialist from Brookdale Community College. We will also have Dr. Pat Splee, the Education Coordinator from the League of Women Voters of Southern Monmouth County, and Louisa Pastor, a Program Developer for the League of Women Voters of Southern Monmouth County. So we're really honored to have you all here with us today to help us to learn more about voting in this COVID world. Danielle?
Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Danielle Jones, and I do work for the Educational Opportunity Fund at Brookdale Community College. I also happen to be a graduate student at Seton Hall University. And I think it's so important and so timely that we're talking about voting and what your rights are as a voter, especially because we are really, and I'm sure we've heard this phrase so many times, we are really in unprecedented times and we're dealing with unprecedented circumstances. It's still important for us to exercise our right to vote. And please do not feel ashamed or embarrassed or feel guilty if some of this information is brand new to you, or you've never heard it before, or maybe you still have questions. That's what we're here for. We are here because we believe in the value of being informed and making an educated decision, as well as participating in your community. That is the essence, that is the core of our democracy here in this country. And you may hear it with different elections, like this is the most important election ever. I really want to stress this is the most important election. Our soul of our country is really at stake. It's not just because of what's going on between Democrats and Republicans. We're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with social unrest and all these different things. Just recently, in Philadelphia, a man that was going through mental health crisis was shot and killed by the police. We have a lot of issues going on, and you are not powerless. You do have power to make positive change in your community. And the way to do that by starting off is voting, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start with, why should you exercise your right to vote? And we can go to the next slide. So what I want everybody to understand, that voting, and me being the book nerd that I am, I went to Merriam-Webster and I pulled some definitions from the dictionary for you. But I want you to understand, voting is you are expressing your opinion. You're making a decision. You're making a choice. It can be something as simple as you get to vote among a group of friends, or we're going to go out to dinner, or we're going to go out to eat, all the way as formal as you're voting for your elected officials on the federal, state, county, and local level. But I want you to understand that voting means that you're expressing one's view by making or showing your decision, your beliefs, or your values in a formal or informal, in an informal or informal manner. And we can go right to the next slide. So once again, why should you exercise your right to vote? One of the things I wanted to talk about, and this is something I talk about to my students, not only at Brookdale Community College, but at county community colleges throughout the state, is why should you exercise your right to vote? And one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is civic engagement. As you can see on the left of the screen, you see a more formal definition, but I want you to understand this. You are going to work to make a difference in your community. Hopefully it's a positive difference. And there's different ways that you can do that. So if you look at the 4 constructs of civic engagement, you have civic action, and that could be something as simple as you're participating in a fundraiser, or you're doing a walk, such like March of Dimes, like the March of Babies, the AIDS awareness walk, making strides for breast cancer. Those activities constitute civic action, because you're participating or you're volunteering in service projects to help better the community or the people, the groups that you're serving. Civic commitment or duty is basically you have the desire or the willingness to make a positive contribution to society. Civic skills, they include things such as conflict management, conflict resolution, having those difficult conversations with people that you may or may not get along with, listening, actively listening, and not just listening just to respond, but actually processing and hearing what other people have to say before you formulate a response. Some of those things are civic skills. And then social cohesion, having a sense of trust, reciprocity, or having bonds with other people. And I know, especially now with online remote learning, it's been difficult. This is probably, especially for our first year college students, you probably did not expect to start college this way. But I am still going to encourage you. You can find ways to still build bonds. Yes, we talk about social distancing, but let's think about it. It's really physical distancing. You're maintaining 6 feet distance, but because we have access to technology such as Zoom, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever you want to, whatever social media or technology piece you want to use, we have the resources to still maintain connections with people, still have those social bonds, and still have those relationships. So you could still find ways to maintain those social bonds and build a sense of community, even though you may not physically see the people in your community. So these are all 4 things, or the 4 constructs of civic engagement, and it also shows how you can get involved. If you go to the next slide, this is a video that will be posted in the chat. It talks about the fight for the right to vote in the United States. As Rose mentioned brief in her remarks, not every U.S. citizen had access to the power to vote. Originally, if you look at the original language of the United States Constitution, the only people eligible to vote at the time, and this is back in 1789, were white men that owned property. And then it moved to, they removed the property requirement in the early 1800s, but women and people of color were still not eligible to vote. Then when it came to the Civil War, the 1865 amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment gave all freed men the right to vote. But we all know with Jim Crow and Reconstruction and all these and other things that there was segregation, and still women did not have access to the right to vote. It wasn't until the 1920, when the 19th Amendment was ratified, that women had the right to vote, but that was only white women. Women of color did not earn the right to vote until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. And then at around the same time, we were involved in what's called the Vietnam War. And at that time, only people ages 21 and up could vote. It wasn't until the 1970s where the 26th Amendment was passed, where they lowered the voting age to 18 years of age. So it's a great video. It's about 4.5, 5 minutes long. I encourage you to watch it because it really shows you what the different movements were throughout the country, American history, that shows why which groups did not have access to the right to vote. And we can still see voter suppression and voter disenfranchisement going on to this day. So please do not take your right to vote for granted. And you can go to the next slide, please. So I want you to think, so especially after you watch that video, I want you to think about a couple things. Do you think voting is important? What's stopping you from voting in elections? And do you feel confident in knowing how to vote? And I'm hoping by the end of this workshop and this 3-part series, we have given you the information, the resources, and tools to help you not only become a confident voter, you're an informed and educated and empowered voter, and you can share this information with other people. You can go to the next slide, please. One thing I want you to see is that New Jersey has a voter bill of rights. Okay, this is all the rights eligible to all registered New Jersey voters. It's available to you in both English and Spanish. So just like there's a Bill of Rights for the United States Constitution, there's a Bill of Rights for all voters in New Jersey. I also want to make the quick mention that if you are, or someone you know, is currently serving parole or probation, guess what? You can still vote in the state of New Jersey. So make sure that we spread this information. Now, the deadline to register to vote in November's election was October 13th, but that doesn't mean they can't register for next year, because next year is a bunch of very important elections. It's the governor's race, our state senators, and our General Assembly members. They can still vote, and they can vote in both the primary and the general elections. So if you or someone you know is serving parole or probation, let's make sure that they are not only registered to vote, but they go exercise their right to vote. And you can share with them this New Jersey Voters Bill of Rights. This tells them what your rights are as a voter. It includes what a sample ballot looks like, what the voting machines do, what to expect as a first-time voter. But the one thing I want to point out to you is the number of the top right. It's 877 NJ voter. I want you to hold on to that number, and I'll tell you why. This number, if you feel that someone is harassing you, trying to prevent you, or intimidate you from voting, you call that number. The reason why you call that number is because your complaint will be sent to the New Jersey Attorney General's office, which is the top law enforcement officer in the state of New Jersey, as well as the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State oversees all the elections in the entire state of New Jersey. They will investigate your complaint. But you also want to hold on to that phone number because you're going to track your vote by mail or your provisional ballot with that number. So once again, that number is 877 NJ voter. And this is available on the website, and you're going to hear this website a lot during this evening. It's vote.nj.gov. So if you go to that website, you will be able to find the Voters Bill of Rights. It's available in both English and Spanish. Once again, that website is vote.nj.gov. Can you go to the next slide, please? So once again, let's talk about who's eligible to vote. So once again, you have to be a United States citizen. You have to be 18 years of age. Now, let's say you won't turn 18 until after November 3rd, which is the upcoming election. You can still register. If you're 17 years of age, you can still register to vote. And now starting in September, you can register to vote online. If you go to vote.nj.gov, you can still register to vote and make sure you're ready for next year. You also need to make sure you are a New Jersey resident for at least 30 days. And once again, if you are serving probation or parole, you are eligible to vote. But these are some of the basic things that makes you an eligible voter in the state of New Jersey. And you can go to the next slide. Once again, that wonderful website is vote.nj.gov, because it will redirect you to the New Jersey Division of Elections, which has all the information you need for voting in the state of New Jersey. And here is a screenshot that shows you how you can check if you are a registered voter. So if you type in your first, if you use a middle initial, put your middle initial down, your last name, your month and year of birth, you can see not only Are you an active or inactive voter? When was your effective date of registration? What county you're registered in? What municipality, which is just a fancy way of saying a city or a town or a borough. And you will also find your voter ID number. And I want you to also hold on to your voter ID number because it's printed on your vote by mail ballot, or you can find it once you check your voter status, because you're going to use that same number, or you can just call 877 NJ voter, and you can track the status of your vote by mail or your provisional ballot to make sure it's been received, processed, and counted. Because once again, we want to stress to everybody, your vote matters and your vote counts. So make sure that you exercise your right to vote. And you can go to the next slide. And now I'm going to transition it to either Miss Pat or Miss Louisa from the League of Women Voters of Southern Monmouth County, which happens to be the same chapter that services my area of Monmouth County. And they can give you some additional information and tools to help you prepare how to vote on your ballot. And I will say, as someone who's actually running for office in Monmouth County right now, this is a great resource. It will help you. And especially if a candidate fills out their candidate bio, like I did, shameless plug, it will help you understand who your candidates are, what their platforms are, and why you should and should not vote for them. So these are some resources that we're going to be sharing throughout the evening to help you prepare and make sure you're informed and educated, so you feel confident whether you're voting by mail or the paper ballot, you know what you're voting for. So I will turn this over to Miss Louisa or Miss Pat, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Danielle. Before we go off this slide, Vote 411, as Danielle said, is a really good source of information. And one of the things that is available on it that might be particularly important to the college students is that there is a first-time voter checklist on the site. And so you can actually take a look at that and make sure that you've gone through every single step that you need to go through in order to be able to vote successfully. Okay, would you go to the next slide, please? Thanks. I'm going to make a very short plug for the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization, and that means that we don't support any particular candidate for office, nor do we support one political party over another. We are nonpartisan, but we do take positions on issues. The first issue we took a position on was 100 years ago, and that was when the 19th Amendment was passed that gave women the right to vote, white women the right to vote. It was a long time, and the League of Women Voters fought for many other groups to earn that right and to try to keep our democracy safe. Louisa and I are both members of that organization, but it is not limited to women. We have men in our organization. We have young people in our organization. In fact, we even have an arm now called Energizing Young Voters, where we're particularly interested in getting 18 to 29-year-olds involved in league work. Next slide, please. We've already heard talk about what's in the presidential race this year. There's plenty of talk about that. And we've also heard that there are other down ballot issues and races that you're going to be voting on. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned yet is that there are also going to be 3 constitutional questions on the ballot. These are the New Jersey Constitution, not the United States Constitution. People will have a chance to say yes or no on 3 issues facing the state. The first one is whether or not we want recreational marijuana to be legalized. The second one is whether or not a property tax deduction, which currently is offered to military that served during wartime, whether we want to offer that same deduction to peacetime veterans. And the third one is whether we should change the date that redistricting takes place if census data is delayed. Now, there are pros and cons to everything, and you can find the pros and cons if you go to 411.org. Everything is explained there, so please take advantage of that website. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to try to do in my few minutes is to explain the mechanics of voting now that it is less than a week until Election Day. mechanics of voting in the state of New Jersey, because different states have different rules, but we're concerned about here. And then I'm going to turn it over to Louisa, and she is going to talk about the safety issues connected with voting and why it's okay and why you can feel confident that your vote will be counted. All right, so first to the mechanics of it. There are two ways that you can vote this time. You can vote in person and you can vote by mail. What we have been recommending up until this very day is that voting by mail is the way to go, or using your vote by mail ballot. But because we're less than a week out now, there are some times when we should say vote in person. There are some complications though. Because of COVID, there are fewer polling places than normal. There will still be one in each municipality, but there are likely to be lines. You've seen the lines on the news, I'm sure, from other states. We don't have early voting the way they do, but I suspect that when we come to election day, that there will be long lines. So if you go to vote in person, plan for it. Make sure you bring some food, make sure you bring water, bring something to sit on, don't get cold, make sure that you're wrapped up, so that you don't have to leave the line and not get your vote cast. When you go to the polls, you can take your vote by mail ballot with you. You can only take your own. You can't carry anybody else's, but you can take that vote by mail ballot that you got into the polls and hand it to the poll worker. And some people feel much more comfortable that their vote has gotten to the Board of Elections doing that. If you don't have your vote by mail ballot, and you go to the polls, usually you were able to use a machine, and that will not happen this time unless you're handicapped or have some kind of a disability that keeps you from being able to use a paper ballot, to cast your ballot by paper. Now, there's a very good reason for that. First of all, COVID would require huge sanitation issues if we had everybody handling the machines. So limiting it to the people who have to use a machine makes sense from a health standpoint. You're going to be asked to use a provisional ballot if you don't bring your own vote by mail ballot with you. And there's a good reason for that. We use provisional ballots in every single election, but this time you're using a provisional ballot if you go there, because we need to be able to be sure that each person casts just one ballot. So you have to think about this. If everybody's gotten a vote by mail ballot at home, and they fill it out and they mail it in, or they put it in a drop box, and then they go to the polls and they fill out a second ballot and it's counted right away, the possibility exists that somebody would vote twice. So we can't do that. All of the ballots that have been vote by mail ballots will be counted first, and then people who cast provisional ballots will have their ballots counted as long as they didn't already cast a vote by mail ballot. So you'll be filling out a paper ballot, whether you do it at home or whether you do it at the polls, unless you have a handicap that will prevent that. When you go to the polls, you have to be sure that you recognize that all the COVID-19 prevention things are in place. So you need to wear a mask, you need to stay 6 feet away from the other people, and use hand sanitizer and that sort of thing. Now, up until today, we've recommended that you use the vote by mail ballot and you return it in one of 4 secure ways. If you haven't already gotten your vote by mail ballot, you need to vote in person. You can either go to the polls on Election Day, which is November 3rd, or you can go to the County Board of Elections. When you get to the County Board of Elections, you can ask for an application for a ballot, fill out that application, hand it right back to them, then they'll give you your ballot, the actual ballot, you fill that out and you hand it right back to them. So you'll be voting in person, but you'll be doing it at the County Board of Elections. So you have either the chance to vote by mail, vote at the polls, or vote at the Board of Elections. We'll talk about the 4 different ways to return on the next slide. Oh, another thing. Danielle mentioned votenewjersey.gov. Burn that into your brain, because any question you have can be answered on that website. It's great. What I have circled there is a tab that will bring you to the polling locations. If you vote in person in your town, You may not be going to the same place that you've always gone to. So check here first. Click on it, click on your county, click on your town, and it will tell you exactly where your polling place is. You also will get a postcard with the information on it about where you should go to vote. But if you've lost that, or you can't find it or whatever, this is the place to go to find out where to go to vote, votenj.gov. Okay, next slide, please. You've heard what you need to do is plan. Go on to the next slide, please. What we're going to talk about now is voting, and the next one. All right, that's it. All right, here is the vote by mail ballot. And even the most knowledgeable people about voting have looked at it and said, I don't know if I'm doing this right. It's not so easy to do. So there are a couple of things that I would recommend strongly. There is a link in this website that I think is going to be put into the chat box to a 4-minute video that the League of Women Voters of Southern Monmouth County created that walks you through step by step by step so that you get everything done correctly and you have all of the questions that you might have answered for you. There are other videos as well. If you can't access this one for some reason, you can go to your County Board of Elections website, and almost every single one of them has a video that explains the process to you. Some are better than others, but at least you'll have a visual that you can work from. There are also some political candidates whose websites have videos on them that explain how to go through the process. What I'm going to do is point out just a couple of things that if you don't go to that, you really need to pay attention to. One of them is that the ballot itself is like a really old-fashioned achievement test. When I was a kid, there were these paper things and you had to fill out that circle, and it was just burned into your brain that you had to make sure you filled in the whole circle, don't make an X. That's what you have to do. You have to fill in the whole circle. You have to use a blue or a black pen. The ballots are scanned by machines, and the machines will not pick up pencil marks and they will not pick up marker. So it has to be a ballpoint pen with blue or black ink in it. The other thing you need to know is that if you spoil your ballot, like somebody might fill in a circle and say, oh no, that's not who I wanted to vote for. Or if you spill a cup of coffee on it, you can get another ballot. But at this point in time, to get the other ballot, you will have to go to the County Board of Elections to ask for it. But do so, because otherwise your ballot won't count. There are 2 envelopes in the package that you get with your mail-in ballot. One of them serves the same purpose that the poll book does when you go in to vote at the polls. You need to put your signature on it. And that signature is compared to what the state has in its records as your signature. And the logic behind that is they want to make sure that you actually are the person who has the right to vote in this particular election. Now, Louisa will talk about signature challenges, and she'll explain to you what might happen if your signature doesn't match. But let me just say, you'll have a chance to fix it if it doesn't match for some reason. There's also a part on that envelope that needs to be filled out if somebody has helped you or if you help somebody else figure out what you're doing. You're called an assistor, and you need to sign the assistor as part of the ballot of the envelope so that it's clear that you have given that person your permission to fill out that ballot, to help you fill out that ballot. Then you need to take that inner envelope and put it into the outer one. And before you seal it, you need to make sure that the barcode shows through the glassine envelope on the other side, because if it doesn't, it won't be counted, because that's how they know that you are the voter that got that ballot. All right, so those are some really important things to remember. And like I said, you can always go back to those videos. They'll help you to, walk you through it. It is confusing. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you've got questions, you can call the League of Women Voters. We're happy to help you. You can call your County Board of Elections. They are happy to help you. Everybody wants you to exercise your right to vote. All right, next slide. And then you can submit it. A couple of different ways that you can do it. The one that we recommend is using the secure Dropbox. Believe me, they're secure. They're bolted to the ground. There's a box inside of a metal box inside of a metal box. They're under 24-hour, 7-day-a-week camera surveillance so that they can be, if somebody does try to mess with it, they know who it is. They can catch up with that. And there is a Democrat and a Republican that go together each day to collect the ballots from that box so that there's no hanky-panky between parties and, you know, making anybody crazy about who might be taking the ballots out of the ballot box. You can use the U.S. Post Office. In New Jersey, the ballots that are postmarked by Election Day will be accepted as long as they reach the Board of Elections by November 10th, which is a week later. If it's not postmarked, it will only be accepted up to 2 days later. So if you decide you're going to use the post box, make sure you go into the post office and ask them to put a postmark on it so that it is, you've got that extra window of 7 days to get your vote counted. And then the last thing you can do, of course, is to take it to the polls and then drop it off with the poll worker. But there's no special line for dropping your ballot off. You've got to get online with everybody else that's out there. So it's going to take some time. And as I mentioned before, you can go right to the Board of Elections. You can get your ballot there, you can fill it out, and you can turn it right in. So if you've not gotten a ballot, that's the way to go. Next slide, please. There are drop boxes in every single county in the state. If you need to find out where yours is, back to that New Jersey vote.nj.gov, and that little tab down in the lower left-hand corner will tell you where the secure drop boxes are located in your county. You click on that, you click on the county, and up comes the list. Really easy to find. I will tell you, when I use the drop box for my own ballot, the slit is so small, I had to really get down and look for the opening. So don't give up if you don't see it right away. It is there, put your ballot in. Next slide, please. All right, there's something that you might be able to do to help other people out. If you know someone who would have a hard time getting their ballot to the post office or to the drop box or to the County Board of Elections, you can serve as a bearer. That's a hard word to say. I get all those vowels mixed up. But if you do, you need to fill out there's a section on the front of the envelope that says that you've been the bearer for another person. The purpose behind that section having to be filled out is to prove again that you have given that person your permission to take your ballot to the county office. So make sure that if you're taking it for somebody else, you can only take 3 ballots in addition to your own. But if you know somebody who doesn't have transportation, you could be doing them a huge favor by offering to be the bearer for them. So please make sure that you get that word out to other people as well. And the next slide. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Louisa, who is going to take you through some of the safety concerns that have arisen in the past and how we're dealing with them today.
Thanks, Pat. Pat has talked about all the mechanics of how to use the ballot, but I'm sure all of you have heard either on social media or from your friends and family concerns that about the safety of these mail-in ballots. They are new to a lot of us, so of course we should be having some concern about how this works. Well, I'm here to prove to you that the mail-in ballots are indeed very safe because certain precautions have been put in place. And we have data from other places in the country where vote-by-mail ballots have been used for several years in Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. They've been using these mail-in ballots for several years without any issues or cases of fraud. And since the year 2000, there have been 250 million mail-in ballots cast. And out of those, there have only been a puny 143 criminal convictions. And you can see from the chart that in the 2018 midterm election, a little more than a quarter of the vote was cast by mail-in ballots, and the other 3/4 by in-person voting. And certain safeguards have been put in place. First of all, there's identity verification via that barcode that Pat mentioned. There are secure drop boxes, and as she noted, they are very secure. And there is a disincentive for fooling around with the mail-in ballots because there are harsh penalties and there are audits after the election. If there are statistical anomalies in the results, an audit will be done and the fraud will be found out and punished. I hope punished. Next slide, please. Good, okay. But mistakes in the ballot mean that a ballot could be rejected, and the stakes are very high here. And I'm going to show you a couple of pie charts. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly, so bear with me. In May, in New Jersey, there were some local nonpartisan elections, and they were conducted completely with mail-in ballots. And of the ballots cast, back to my pie chart, one more, thank you. Out of all those ballots cast, almost 10% were rejected, which is not a great showing. So let's see what happened here. The largest segment of rejections was because of a signature mismatch. For some reason, the signature in the ballot did not match up with the signature on file at the Board of Elections. And that was a little over a quarter of the rejected ballots. Another big piece was ballots were received too late, accounting for almost 20% of the rejections. The next largest category was a missing certification. The certification is that perforated piece on the inner envelope. And that's the piece that's used to match up your signature. And if it's not there, if for some reason the voter removed it or didn't submit it with the ballot, there's no way for them to match the signature and they have to reject the ballot. The other issues, some of them were due to, I must say, voter carelessness or misunderstanding. People didn't enclose the ballot, or they didn't sign the certificate, or they didn't complete the bearer portion. So let's look what happened in the July primary elections. Could I have the next slide? Next slide. Oh, before we get to the July one, I noted that the signature issue was one of the main problems with rejected ballots. And this is how the signature matching works. It's so important. I want to explain to you exactly how it works. Your signature is on that little perforated slip on the inner envelope. And the Board of Election looks at your signature, compares it to the signature on file. That is the signature that they would normally be using in the polling place, in the polling book. And if there's a question about it, if something seems not right, it doesn't match, they bump it up to the commissioners on the County Board of Elections. And these commissioners are half Democrats and half Republicans. And they examine the signature match and decide whether it is okay to count the ballot or if it needs to be fixed. If it needs to be fixed, the voter will get a letter saying that the ballot was rejected because of the signature match and how to fix this. They'll get a letter and some kind of a form to fill out, and there is a deadline to fill out this form and send it back to the Board of Elections in time to be counted as a valid ballot. So if you get one of these curing letters, don't ignore it. It's very important. Unless you fix the ballot, they call it curing the ballot, which is kind of a strange medical term for it, but it really means fixing it. And please pay attention to that and to the stated deadline. Next slide. Okay, so after the May vote by mail in local elections, there was a primary, as you know, in July. And the reasons for the ballot rejections changed. The biggest one in May was a signature mismatch, but now you'll see in that lavender colored piece of the pie at the bottom, the signature mismatch now would only accounted for 12% of the rejected ballots. The larger portion was ballots received after the deadline. And the next biggest reason for rejection was a missing certificate. There are also still too many ballots that are sent in to the Board of Elections, empty envelopes with no ballot. So we all need to watch out for that and signing that certificate. But we went from a rejection rate of about 10% in May to a rejection rate of less than 3% in July. And this was a very big improvement. They sent out over 15,000 cure letters so people could fix their signatures. That's why the signature mismatch percentage went down so much. Could I have the next slide, please? So wait, pause, stop, wait, stop. Thank you. I wanted to look at these one at a time. There's some surprise element here, so we want to look at these one at a time. In addition, perhaps, to voters being more careful and getting more used to using mail-in ballots, the process has been improved by the state of New Jersey. So let's take a look at that signature mismatch issue. For the primary election in July, voters were notified for a signature mismatch and allowed to cure their signature. This was something new, and we saw what a big effect it had on the number of ballots that was rejected. And there's now a stated policy that in case there's a mismatch, they're not quite sure, maybe it's a mismatch, maybe not, the policy is to favor approval of that signature, to weigh this for the voter, in favor of the voter. And now for the November election, they've made additional changes to improve the process. In addition to the voter being notified and the curing and the policy of favoring the voter, this signature curing process will begin as soon as that ballot is received and scanned. And this is important because it gives the voter more time to fix that issue. So the faster we get things done, the better off it's going to be. As a matter of fact, the sooner all these steps are done, the better off we're going to be, the more ballots are going to be counted. So the League of Women Voters is encouraging everyone to vote as soon as possible so that all the steps can progress in a smooth and efficient way. What about the ballot received too late? What's the story there? Okay, for the July primary, we added drop boxes. This was great. I love those drop boxes. I feel really confident putting my ballot in a drop box. The deadline for receipt of ballots was also extended. If they were postmarked by election day, they would still be considered valid if they were received up to 7 days later. It used to be 48 hours later, they bumped it up to 7 days later. Now for the November election, there are more drop boxes. They have added a way to submit your ballot by taking your own ballot to your own polling place. The deadline is the same for ballots that are postmarked, but they added an additional extension for those ballots that are not postmarked. Sometimes there's issues or situations in the post offices, and some things end up being not postmarked. This way, even if it's not postmarked, it will still be considered a valid ballot if it's received 48 hours from the close of polls. Again, of course, don't even worry about that. Just vote early and it won't be an issue. And the next slide, please. We have ease of submitting. For the July primary, no one had to worry about postage anymore. The postage was prepaid, and there were 3 ways to return your ballot. There was the drop box, the US mail, or the polling place. Now there are 4 ways to return the ballot. There is the drop box, the mail, the polling place, or hand delivering it to the Board of Election. And timely results. We are all very anxious to get the results of this election. I know everybody is biting their fingernails and just working themselves into a lather, waiting for the results. But we all have to be really patient here. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with each other, patient with the Board of Elections, patient while you're waiting in line, because this year is unlike any other, and it's just going to take a long time to count all these ballots. The ballot count in New Jersey, luckily, is going to start 10 days before Election Day, which is now. They have already started counting these ballots. There are a lot of steps involved in counting the ballots. They check that barcode. First, they open the outer envelope. They check the barcode. They check the signature. They send the curing letters. There's a lot going on here, and they've already started counting the ballots. They are not going to release any tallies until the polls close at 8 p.m. on the 3rd. There's apparently some tally button that has to be pressed to add them all up, and they're not going to do that. And they are not going to leak because there is a big criminal penalty for doing so. So in the July primary, the rejection rate for ballots dropped from more or less 10% to just under 3%. We would like it to drop to 0. We know that's not going to happen. 3% isn't bad for a ballot rejection rate. So could we have the next slide, please? So if you are concerned about whether or not your ballot has been rejected, or if your friends and neighbors and family are concerned about this and are asking you about it, you can tell them there's a way to check it out. If you go once again to vote.newjersey.gov, that is the big takeaway today. It's embedded in your brain. You can sign up for the public access database. First, you have to create an account to do this. And to set up the account, you need either driver's license, the last 4 digits of your social security number, or your voter ID number. This is the number that Danielle mentioned. It's on the ballot there somewhere. If you look for it, you can find it. We have noticed in trying to use this in the League of Women Voters that the driver's license and the social security number sometimes do not give you a good result in setting up an account, because the database is fairly new. And if you have been a New Jersey voter since forever, your driver's license and social security number might not be in this database. So voter ID is the best way to go here. You can set up an account and then use that account to enter the database. And on the next slide, you'll see what the results show. That little square on the bottom right-hand corner indicates all the information that you will get from this database. And the column on the right on the bottom, it's written in kind of small letters. I don't know if you can see. It says ballot status received. And that's what we want to see, ballot status received. If this doesn't work for you, you can also call the County Board of Elections and ask if your ballot has been received. Some counties, I think, are sending out cards, postcards, telling you your ballot has been received. I did get one from my county, Monmouth County, saying that they had received my ballot, which really puts my mind at rest. And the next slide, please. There are other ways to tell if your ballot has been accepted. If there's a problem with signature, of course, you're going to get one of these cure letters with the form. You'll be notified by mail if your ballot is rejected. And as I mentioned, you can call your local county board of election office and ask for the status of your ballot. Keep in mind, there's probably going to be a few lines, and it may take you a while to get through another place to practice your patience. Next slide, please. Okay, this is where you can get more information. Vote.newjersey.gov at the bottom. The League of Women Voters of Monmouth County has put together this text number, 732-927-1131. That is a number that is uniquely for texting for help from the League of Women Voters. It's not used for anything else. It is totally safe. And if you have a last minute question, you get stuck somewhere, you need help, you need to vent, you can call this number and text in your request for information or your question. There's also Vote 411. It's either vote411.org or vote411.com. It'll take you to the same place. This has all kinds of information provided by the League of Women Voters. This is also a very good place to get information about those ballot questions. There are explanations of those ballot questions. There's information about candidates, assuming that those candidates have submitted their information. And then there's the League of Women Voters, southernmonmouthcounty.org. That's lwvsnc.org, which also has a lot of information. Now, I don't think it has been mentioned yet, but when you receive your mail-in ballot packet in the mail, in addition to the ballot and 2 envelopes, there is also a sheet of instructions. So I have been recommending to everybody I know to just take a minute, lay out all this stuff on the table in front of you, read the instructions, familiarize yourself with all the materials before you pick up your black or blue pen to write anything. Those instructions really are quite clear. And if you slow down and do it carefully, you won't have any problems. Most of the problems come from inattention or confusion or something, but this is part of Plan Your Vote, is to plan how to fill in that ballot. Next slide. And these are a few other resources. This is the kind of the context. If you want to delve deeper into how elections work, what this vote by mail is all about, whom it benefits or whom it doesn't benefit, and so forth. And I think these are also going to be a part of the chat, so you can refer to that later and look it up, because, you know, students like to delve deeper into things, and this is a suggestion of where to go. The Brennan Center is located in New York. It's the Brennan Center for Justice, I think, is the official name. And they have all kinds of materials about voting, about civil engagement, and about issues of justice in the law. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm turning the proceedings over to Danielle Jones. Danielle is muted.
Thank you so much. I just noticed that because I got the little warning on my computer. But just to try to tie everything up together, I really would encourage everybody, do not wait till the last minute. As a fellow grad student myself, we're good at procrastinating. Don't do it. Don't wait until the last minute. We still have 6 days until Election Day, and it's not too late to complete and return your vote by mail ballot. And Ms. Pat and Ms. Louisa gave us lots of great information on how and where you can return it to. And make sure, if you have any additional questions, please reach out to the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges. I will also make sure that my contact information is available as well. I'd rather you ask the question and we answer it, or we direct you to the right resource or organization that can help you, than you not returning your ballot and exercising your right to vote. So just some very brief information, because it was covered in the previous slides. There is such thing as a provisional ballot, or what we call a paper ballot. And if you do not receive your vote by mail ballot, you did not apply for one previously, especially if you just recently registered to vote, or you did not return it, you can vote by provisional ballot or paper ballot. And you can move to the next slide. And once again, this is on vote.nj.gov. Here's this quick screenshot of how you would vote by provisional ballot. And basically what happens is you would go to your designated polling place. The poll worker will give you a paper ballot in an envelope, and they must give you a place in secret to vote for it. So that way people aren't watching over your back, over your shoulder, things like that. So you're not intimidated or harassed to vote a certain way. They have to give you a place to vote in secret. Then you would put the completed ballot in and seal it. And then there is a affirmation statement. And that's the certification that Ms. Louisa was talking about. For no reason, do not detach it. Keep it attached to your ballot. And then you want to give the completed envelope and sealed envelope to the poll worker. Now, you can either put the ballot into the ballot bag, or the poll worker do it. It's up to you. But this outlines all the different steps of how you would vote by paper ballot in person. But once again, if you want to track it, you're going to call that 877 NJ voter, or if you have created that profile, you can go online and track it. Now, depending on the county, because I can say this for Monmouth County, there is a website that you can use to get text messages, phone calls, or emails to track the status of your ballot. So definitely check with your county's Board of Elections, and they will tell you what resources are available to track the status of your ballot. But once again, just don't wait till the last minute. Don't procrastinate. And as we like to pull all-nighters in school, don't do this to the last minute. We have 6 days. Let's get it done as soon as possible. And make sure you tell your friends, your family members, your neighbors, your coworkers, your fellow students, make sure if they are registered to vote, that they're exercising their right to vote. Can you move to the next slide, please? And here are some additional resources. Once again, the New Jersey Division of Elections, their portal is vote.nj.gov. And the Division of Elections is on social media. They're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you can follow them on social media, and they have great information and updates, and as well as links to important information for you. The state of New Jersey also has a free New Jersey Elections app. And so if you have an Apple or Android phone or tablet, whatever your fancy is, download that free app. It has every single election in the state of New Jersey and all the important information, so you can keep track of it on your phone. Now, the New Jersey Department of State is also on social media. Now, they're only on Facebook and Twitter. They are not on Instagram. I'm sorry to tell you that, but they're not on Instagram. And please don't ask if they're on Snapchat or TikTok, because they're not. But they are on Facebook and Twitter. You can also follow them, as well as the Secretary of State, Tahisha Way, and see what other updates or information or resources they post as well. I also have my contact information available to you as well as working for Brookdale Community College. I also serve as the Government Relations Community Chair for the EOF Professional Association New Jersey. I oversee all the advocacy, outreach programs, and efforts for all EOF programs in the entire state of New Jersey. So this is, as you can see, this is like my passion project, and I'm happy to help you out with it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I am also on Instagram at EOFDJones, so you can message me or send me an email. Because I'm also running for office myself, I will give you permission. If I don't respond right away, if it's been 1 or 2 days, I don't respond back to you, you can send me a little nudge and I'll not get offended. But if you reach out to me on the weekends, I don't check my email. So I'm just going to let you know right now. But it's so important. And I want you guys to utilize the resources that we have available for you, whether it's the League of Women Voters, whether it's the New Jersey Department of State or the Division of Elections, or even myself. Reach out. We are here to help you. We were willing to come put these workshops together to make sure that everybody leaves equipped, educated, and empowered, and they're confident, so they know they can make a confident decision when it comes to exercising their right to vote. So whether it's all the way from the presidential election, all the way down to your council members, your board of education, the public questions, there are resources and information available to you. Use them. And if you're not sure, ask questions. There are plenty of people and organizations that are willing to help you, and we are here for you. So please don't be ashamed or embarrassed, or if you feel guilty that, oh, I don't know this, or does it make sense to me? It's okay. That's why we're here. So I really hope that whether this is the first time you attended this workshop, or you've come to a previous one that we've had over the past couple of weeks, that you were given the tools and the resources so that way you can be an informed and empowered voter. And please share this information. So not only have you been able to participate in this webinar, it is also streamed on Facebook Live. So if you go to NJ Community Colleges, I think it's on the next slide, yes, it is. So if you could stay connected with New Jersey County Colleges, and their handle is right there at the very bottom, NJCom Colleges, you can find the recording on YouTube. You can find this Facebook Live post, and you can share it with other people. We have so many people. Yes, we've had great early voting or return results for the vote by mail ballot, but there's still plenty of people that have not voted yet. So please encourage them and give them these resources. Also, if you are a community college student, future community college student, or an alumni member like myself, you want to stay connected with New Jersey community colleges. And the reason why is because they have all these wonderful events and everything else. Please stay in touch with them. Complete the form. I know the link was posted in the chat. Complete the form so you can stay connected, and they will be in touch with you about upcoming events, whether it's something similar as this or different events. But please stay in touch. But I also want to thank you for taking the time out to attend this webinar or view us on Facebook Live. It's been a joy and a privilege and a pleasure to be of service to you. And once again, your vote matters. Your vote counts. So go exercise your right to vote. And please reach out if you have any questions. But remember, the election day is less than 1 week away. We are hold on, I have the countdown on my phone. We are 6 days, 1 hour, and 50 minutes away. We have plenty of time. And yes, I'm counting. But we still have plenty of time to go return your ballot and exercise your right to vote. So I really encourage everyone, if you're registered and you have voted, wonderful. Make sure you talk to everybody, other people you know. And if you haven't voted, get and make sure you go out and vote, because we want to make sure that your voice is heard and and that you exercise your right to vote.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And thank you so much, Rose and Pat and Louisa. This was wonderful. And as Danielle mentioned, if you would like to stay connected to the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, I have put the form link in the chat. Please, we will have many upcoming events where we will bring together students and alumni. And we just thank you for your time today. This has been a fabulous series. Aaron, did you want to say a few words in closing?
Sure. Just I want to thank all of our speakers tonight. Danielle, thank you for being with us for three different
Yes.
sessions that were all very helpful. And thank you very much to Pat and to Louisa. Your presentations were excellent, very informative. I feel more confident now as a voter than I did before. So thank you. And I know those who joined us tonight on Zoom and who will watch this on Facebook and online will also benefit from this tremendously. So as Danielle said, please exercise your right to vote. We've got a couple more days, and we look forward to staying in touch with all of you. Thank you for all that you do for our state, and go vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for staying with us during this time. And as Aaron said, I also feel more confident as a voter after this. It was fabulous. So thank you again, and have a great evening. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
everybody. Have a
Thank you.
great night. Stay well, stay healthy. Take
Thank
care
you. You
now.
too.
Bye. Thank you.